What we've got here is failure to communicate.
Look, up in the sky, it's a bird.
Football is a 20th century technological struggle.
I've eaten a river of liver and an ocean of fish.
I would not object to
The hanger curveball, high fiber, good scotch.
Just a bit outside.
Hello everyone, I am Kevin Benjamin. This is Benj watching. Thank you for joining me today. Happy Mother's Day to my mom Renita and my Aunt Joette and Aunt Eileen and all the mothers out there who had to deal with me growing up. Sorry about that. Also, it's my grandfather's, Dave's birthday. So he would have been 97 today. Both my grandparents passed away. My grandfather in 13 and my grandmother in 18. And I was very close with both of them. And they both made a really big impact on my, my sports broadcasting career. So I just want to say happy birthday to my grandfather and happy Mother's Day to all the moms out there. I want to talk about when I was a kid and how my marathon running mom would work hard to make me a happy kid, going to Little League, soccer, a little bit of baseball. I played basketball for a couple years and then everybody else grew. My mom ran marathons, and she got up every morning and basically ran since I could remember. I think she started running when I was born in like around 1967. And she would run in Baltimore at the JCC with a bunch of guys, and back then, you know, women didn't run. And then when she took us to Florida, she started running a little bit farther. As far as distance running, and eventually trained and ran in her first marathon, which was the Orange Bowl Marathon. And the reason why I remember how awesome this was because I had the whole Orange Bowl to myself, and it was kind of cool because the end of the race, all the runners circled into the open end zone, the open end area of the Orange Bowl. And so I was waiting for her at the finish line, which was kind of cool. But during that 2.5, 3 hour, whatever, 4 hour span, I got a chance to run around the Orange Bowl, and it was kind of cool. One of the highlights of my my childhood was watching her run those marathons. She ran, I think, maybe 20, and then when she got remarried at the end of 11th grade to my father, who I consider Michael, they were kind of very compatible, and she convinced him somehow to start training for marathons, and eventually they ran like 20, 30 marathons together. I can't remember when the last time they ran one was, but they're very fit, mid-70s, and hopefully I can be as fit as them when I'm their age. And speaking of health and fitness and everything, just want to reiterate everybody to be careful out there. Social distancing, it's kind of a weird time in our existence here. As a sports fan, I'm realistically going out of my mind, not having, well, you would have playoff, NBA playoff hockey. You would have the baseball season in the beginning of summer here. I think that no baseball is really, I'm having a tough time. Not that I would sit down and watch a baseball game, because who does? It's very boring. But I'm at my computer over there, and I'm writing and doing some work, and the baseball game's on. You can always find a day game, pretty much, it seems, when the season's in its peak. Summer, and it's just upsetting that there's any sports, regardless of baseball. I'm a huge baseball fan, but I definitely love watching, especially the NHL playoffs. Now, the NBA not as much, Michael Jordan, since he retired, I really haven't watched much NBA, I got to be honest with you. I watched the finals. I know the players. It's just not the same as it was in the 80s and even the 90s. And when I covered the Magic and some of the Michael Jordan Bulls games, which was kind of cool, I had a chance to interview him 6 times. 3 times at Orlando Magic games and 3 times when he played baseball for the Chicago White Sox during the 2 years in the mid-90s when he left the NBA, started playing baseball for the White Sox, and then went back to the Bulls to win 3 more titles. And then he retired again, and then he came back and played a stint with the Washington Wizards, 2001, I think, somewhere around there. But the reason why I'm bringing all this up is because The Last Dance documentary on ESPN has been going on. I've watched the first 6 episodes. Really nothing new that I mean, besides all the cussing, which is kind of, it's kind of weird listening to him throw F-bombs around like candy. But he's, in my opinion, the greatest player to ever lace up the shoes on the NBA hardcourt. And I don't care if LeBron James is watching this or not. I just think that Michael Jordan's the best. And if he wouldn't have played baseball those 2 years in the middle, they would have won 8 straight championships. But when he was gone, the Houston Rockets, won a couple of NBA titles in the middle of the Bulls' reign. So, excuse me, it's kind of interesting to watch it. I like all the old footage, and the interviews are great. I'm not here to hype the Jordan Last Dance, but if you haven't had a chance to watch it, check it out. A lot of really cool interviews. It's really cool to see them look back at this. It's cool because it's pretty much, there's not much going on right now as far as sports in general, as far as live action. So any kind of documentaries or anything we could sit down and watch as sports fans, especially the stuff. I think the 1988 World Series was on the other night, Game 1, when Kirk Gibson hit the game-winning home run to win Game 1. And Vin Scully calling that. No, it wasn't Vin Scully. It was Jack Buck. Okay, he called that. I'm pretty sure it was Jack Buck who called that. And not Joe Buck, his son. It was Jack Buck, his dad. Called that. I can't remember the line, actually. But, watching the highlights of that, the 83 World Series, the Game 5 clinching game when the Orioles beat the Phillies, I watched that. The ending, and Cal Ripken Jr. caught the final out. And of course, I was 15, 16 at the time, and I'm like, the Orioles just won the World Series, and, they were in 3 straight in 69, 70, 71. They only won the 70 against the Reds, lost to the Miracle Mets in 69, and the Pirates in 71 and 1979. And then the Orioles came back in 83 and beat the Phillies in the World Series. And it was kind of cool because Cal Ripken caught the final out. And I remember saying to my friends, oh, they're going to win like 5 of them. He's Cal Ripken. The Orioles are going to win like 5 World Series. So watch out. But they never got back into another World Series. They were in the American League Championship Series, I think, in 97. They lost to the Yankees and Derek Jeter. I'm not going to get into that, the fan in the outfield, the interference, but I'm not going to go there. I just wish that maybe they could bring back baseball as soon as possible, because I'm literally losing my mind. So just want to again wish everybody a happy Mother's Day out there. And be safe. And I just want everybody to be reminded that my book on Amazon, The Stigma of Sports in Florida, I'm not going to show the actual book because it's over there and I forgot to bring it over here. So that's the picture. But if you go to Amazon, The Stigma of Sports in Florida, You can download a copy and read it on the toilet for all I care, or you can order a paperback through Amazon, or if you want an autographed copy, just shoot me off a text or email me or message me or whatever, and I'll sign it to you. Go Gators, go Hurricanes, go Seminoles, go Dolphins, whatever you're a fan of in Florida. And basically the book is about why it's the history of sports in Florida, and the history has only been like 50 years or so. And the last issue I want to talk about here is Don Shula. We moved to Miami from Baltimore in the summer of 1974, and all I knew was Johnny Unitas and the Baltimore Colts. They had their practice facility a few miles down the road from where I lived in Baltimore. I moved to Florida when I was 7, so I remember my dad taking me to a few Colts practice outings. I think it was near the Channel 45 TV tower or something like that. I can't remember. It's been so long. So I do remember seeing Johnny Unitas in like 1970, 71 as a little kid. And I'll put a picture up of me wearing my Baltimore Colts jacket from when I was like 4 or 5 years old with one of the American Hockey League Baltimore Clippers hockey players. Got a picture taken. I love this picture. It's a great picture. But before Don Shula was in Miami, Don Shula played defensive back for the Baltimore Colts with Johnny Unitas, with Art Donovan, Gino Marchetti. Then when he retired from playing, he was a coach for the Colts. Then he was the head coach for the Colts when they lost Super Bowl III to Joe Namath and the Jets. And so then Don Shula was offered the job as the Miami Dolphins head coach. He took that after he lost the Super Bowl in Super Bowl III. And then, 1972, the Dolphins go undefeated wire to wire, beat the Redskins in Super Bowl VII, and to this day are the only undefeated NFL team to win the Super Bowl. They were 17-0, and Don Shula was like a legend when I grew up in South Florida. He was such a great guy, and he passed away the other day at 90. Had a heck of a running game with Larry Zonka, Jim Kick, and Mercury Morris to win those 2 Super Bowls in the early 70s. They went to 3 straight Super Bowls, lost to the Cowboys, then beat the Redskins, then beat the Vikings in Super Bowl VIII. But it's that 72 undefeated season that everybody will remember. So, gonna leave you with that. Rip Don Shula, R.I.P., rest in peace. The legend. You can read about his legacy. It's chapter 1 of my book, The Stigma of Sports in Florida. So I talk about Dan Marino as well. I got a whole chapter on him, why he was so underrated. Even though Don Shula only went to 1 Super Bowl with Dan Marino, and they lost to the Redskins. And then Don Shula, a couple years before that, took the Dolphins to the Super Bowl, but got killed by Bill Walsh and Joe Montana just carved up the Dolphins in that Super Bowl. But again, check it out, The Stigma of Sports in Florida. Everybody wash your hands, be safe out there. Thanks for tuning in to Benj Watching. Happy Mother's Day. See ya, everybody.